In 1995, 3 years after Spike Lee's film returned Malcolm X to the center of American culture, the scholar Michael Eric Dyson published a slim, demanding book called Making Malcolm. Its question was not simply who Malcolm X was, but how he is made and remade by each generation that claims him. 30 years after his assassination, Malcolm had risen to a cultural stratosphere once occupied only by Martin Luther King, his face stamped on caps and T-shirts, his voice sampled on rap records, his initial worn by people not yet born when he died. Dyson set out to rescue the complex, evolving man from both his worshippers and his enemies, asking a single hard question that runs through every page: whose Malcolm is it? This deck follows his life, his transformations, and the long argument over his meaning. Dyson argues that Malcolm X has been buried twice, once in the ground in 1965, and again beneath competing waves of uncritical celebration and vicious attack that settle easily into myth and caricature. To his true believers, he became a flawless saint of Black rebellion. To his enemies, the mere symbol of Black hatred and violence. Both portraits, Dyson insists, obscure the actual man, who was formidable precisely because he kept changing. The task of an honest critic is to achieve the thickest possible description of Malcolm's career while refusing to either idolize or demonize him. We do not have to make Malcolm an idol, Dyson writes, to learn through critical analysis of his failures and successes, his weaknesses and strengths. Making Malcolm is a book about how a nation makes meaning out of a life. Before Malcolm became a myth, he was a boy named Malcolm Little, shaped by Garveyite parents, racial terror, the streets of the northern ghetto, and a prison cell where he remade himself. Malcolm X, Dyson writes, was one of the most complex and enigmatic African-American leaders ever. Born Malcolm Little on May 19, 1925, in Omaha, Nebraska. His ideas of Black nationalism were shaped virtually from the womb. His parents, Earl and Louise Little, were both members of Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association. Earl, an itinerant Baptist preacher, served as president of the Omaha branch and vigorously proclaimed the Garveyite doctrine of racial self-help and Black unity, often with Malcolm at his side. Louise, a native of Grenada and a deeply spiritual woman, served as the branch reporter while raising 8 children. The gospel of Black pride and self-determination that Malcolm would later preach to the world was first spoken in his own home. Racial terror marked Malcolm's earliest years. According to his account, the family was driven from Omaha by the Ku Klux Klan while he was still an infant, and in 1929, their home in Lansing, Michigan, was burned down by a white hate group, the Black Legionnaires, an event Malcolm called his earliest vivid memory. When Malcolm was 6, his father died after being crushed under a streetcar. Whether the Legionnaires killed him or the death was accidental remains disputed by scholars. Either way, the loss was fateful. Louise was left to raise 8 children alone through the Great Depression, eventually suffered a mental breakdown, and saw her children dispersed to foster homes. This experience of violence and dispossession, Dyson notes, deeply influenced Malcolm's later unsparing denunciation of white racism. Malcolm was a gifted student, elected 8th grade class president at Mason Junior High School in Michigan. But a single devastating rebuff sealed his early fate. When he told a teacher he dreamed of becoming an attorney, the teacher discouraged him, calling it an unrealistic goal for, in the slur of the day, a Negro. The wound helped turn a promising boy into an academic dropout. After the 8th grade, Malcolm left Lansing for Boston, going to live with his half-sister Ella. There, he encountered for the first time the Black bourgeoisie with its social pretensions and concluded the Black middle class was largely ineffective at achieving real liberation. In Boston's Roxbury and New York's Harlem, he met the street life of the urban poor, gaining a lasting insight into the styles, sufferings, and aspirations of everyday Black people. On the streets of Roxbury and Harlem, Malcolm assembled a hustling repertoire that ranged from drug dealing and numbers running to burglary. Known by the moniker Detroit Red, he lived the life that the Nation of Islam would later teach him to read as a symptom of white racist neglect. In 1946, burglary landed him in prison on a 6 to 10-year sentence. That prison period, lasting until 1952, Dyson writes, marked the first of several extraordinary transformations Malcolm underwent as he searched for the truth about himself. He read so voraciously, from biblical theology to Western philosophy, absorbing authors as different as Louis Leakey and Friedrich Nietzsche, that his eyesight strained and he began wearing the trademark glasses. Behind bars, the street hustler began to disappear. In prison, Malcolm experienced his first religious conversion, slowly evolving from a slick street con artist into a self-taught devotee of Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, the Black nationalist religious group Muhammad headed. Malcolm was drawn to the Nation for the character of its beliefs and practices, its peculiar gift for rehabilitating Black male prisoners, its strong emphasis on Black pride, history, culture, and unity, and its unblinking assertion that white men were devils, a teaching that led the Nation to advocate Black separation from white society. Within a year of his release on parole in 1952, Malcolm became a minister and journeyed to the Chicago headquarters to meet face-to-face with the man whose doctrines of white evil and Black superiority had, in his own words, given him new life. Dyson dwells on the prison years because they reveal Malcolm's defining trait, the relentless remaking of the self. Barely literate in the polished sense when he entered, Malcolm copied the dictionary word by word, then read with a ferocity that strained his eyes for the rest of his life. He argued passionately about a vast range of subjects, from biblical theology to Western philosophy, absorbing authors as diverse as the anthropologist Louis Leakey and the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. This self-education was not idle. It was the forge of the formidable debater who would later master Black and white opponents alike on television and the lecture platform. The hustler's quick intelligence, redirected toward books, became a disciplined and dangerous instrument. Malcolm taught himself, and in doing so, taught a generation that the mind was a weapon against racial contempt. Through ferocious discipline and brilliant oratory, Malcolm built the Nation of Islam into a national force and gave voice to a raid that the civil rights movement had left unspoken. Through a Herculean work ethic and Spartan self-discipline, key features of the Black Puritanism that defined the nation's moral orientation, Malcolm rose in short order from assistant minister of Detroit's Temple No. 1 to national spokesman for Elijah Muhammad. As the nation's mouthpiece, he brought unprecedented visibility to a religious group that critics had ignored or dismissed as fringe fanatics. Under his leadership, the nation grew from several hundred members to perhaps 100,000 by the early 1960s, founded 40 temples across the United States, and purchased 30 radio stations. Malcolm's gift was organizational as well as rhetorical, building institutions even as he became the most electrifying Black voice in America. Malcolm's ministry defined itself against Martin Luther King and the church-based civil rights movement. Where King advocated redemptive suffering through Black bloodshed, Malcolm promulgated reciprocal bleeding for Blacks and whites alike. As King preached Christian love, Malcolm articulated Black anger with unmitigated passion. As King urged nonviolent civil disobedience, Malcolm promoted liberation by any means necessary, including the possibility of armed self-defense. While King dreamed, Dyson writes in his most quoted line, Malcolm saw nightmares. It was Malcolm's unique ability to narrate Black resistance at the edge of racial apocalypse that made him both exciting and threatening, speaking out loud what many Blacks secretly felt about white racism, but were afraid to say in public. While the Southern Civil Rights Movement transformed conditions for the Black middle class, it barely touched the poor Northern urban Blacks whose lives were being crushed by deindustrialization, automation, and rising unemployment in Rust Belt cities. Malcolm's ministry, like the nation's mission generally, was directed precisely at these forgotten people, the socially dispossessed, the morally compromised, the economically desperate members of the Black proletariat. The nation recruited among prison populations abandoned by traditional Christianity and proselytized among hustlers, drug dealers, and the down and out, offering them self-respect, social dignity, a royal Black history, and a Black God to serve. Malcolm spoke for the millions the movement had left behind, naming their pain before a nation that preferred not to hear it. Dyson refuses to soften Malcolm's failures. Like most of his nationalist and civil rights peers, Malcolm cast Black liberation in terms of masculine self-realization, and his zealous attack on Black male emasculation went hand in hand with often aggressive, occasionally vicious put-downs of Black women. These slights reflected the demonology of the nation, which treated women as a lethal source of deception and seduction from within. Nation women were desexualized through modest dress, kept under close male supervision, and relegated to the background while men took center stage, reinforcing the already inferior position of Black women in Black culture. Although Malcolm would renounce such views near the end of his life, Dyson observes, his contemporary followers among rappers and filmmakers have too often failed to follow suit. Disillusioned with the nation, a famous indiscretion, and a journey to Mecca remade Malcolm a final time, from revolutionary nationalist toward a wider human rights vision he did not live to fulfill. Malcolm grew increasingly uneasy with the nation's officially apolitical stance, which forbade civil disobedience and so contained the very rage his rhetoric unleashed. He also became aware of internal corruption, unprincipled financial practices among top officials, and extramarital affairs involving Elijah Muhammad himself. There is evidence, Dyson notes, that Malcolm had privately abandoned the whites are devils doctrine years before his public break. The official rupture came after Malcolm called President Kennedy's assassination a case of the chickens coming home to roost, meaning the violence America committed abroad had returned home. Muhammad silenced him, motivated as much by jealousy of Malcolm's enormous popularity as by the comment itself. In March 1964, unable to mend the relationship, Malcolm left the Nation of Islam. After leaving the nation, Malcolm formed two organizations, the Religious Muslim Mosque and the political Organization of Afro-American Unity, the latter modeled on the Organization of African Unity, and reflecting his new belief that broad social engagement offered Blacks the best chance against racism. First, though, he fulfilled a long-standing dream and made the hajj to Mecca. There, his humane treatment by white Muslims and his sense of the universality of Islamic truth forced him to reject his former blanket beliefs about whites, and he wrote a series of letters to his followers detailing the stunning change of heart. Yet the new openness did not blind him to American racism. He still insisted it be opposed with aggressive social resistance. Malcolm's vision had widened without going soft. Malcolm lived only 50 weeks after his break with the nation, time enough to begin his last and perhaps most meaningful transformation, from revolutionary Black nationalist to human rights advocate. Traveling through the Middle East and Africa, he linked African American liberation to freedom movements worldwide and broadened his field of vision to include the dispossessed of every color, oppressed by class as much as by race. He never surrendered Black unity or self-determination, but he no longer drew the boundary at the color line. He did not live to fulfill the promise. On February 21, 1965, 3 months shy of his 40th birthday, Malcolm X was gunned down by Nation of Islam loyalists as he rose to speak to a meeting of the OAAU in Harlem. Fortunately, Malcolm had recently completed his life story with the help of Alex Haley. The Autobiography of Malcolm X stands, Dyson writes, as a classic of Black letters and of American autobiography, and it became the single most powerful engine of his myth. Yet Dyson reads even this revered book critically. It reflects, he argues, both Malcolm's own need to shape his personal history for public racial unification, bringing coherence to a radically conflicting set of life experiences, and co-author Alex Haley's political biases and ideological purposes. The narrative arc of sinner to saint that the autobiography made famous is itself a kind of making of Malcolm, a crafted story as much as a transparent record, and the foundation on which later generations would build. For Dyson, who grew up in the Black church, Malcolm's deepest kinship with Martin Luther King lay in a shared mastery of the word. Both were brilliant political rhetoricians whose deft weaving of spiritual uplift and secular complaint forged a powerful basis for Black action in a bruising white world. In African American culture, Dyson explains, acts of rhetorical resistance are far more than mere words. They fuse speech and performance, drawing on traditions from religious worship to social protest. The Black sermon, the jewel in the crown of Black sacred rhetoric, lets a leader deliver priestly wisdom and prophetic warning at once. Malcolm and Martin were acknowledged masters of that form. Malcolm's power, in the end, was the power of language to name reality and to make words carry world-making, life-altering consequences. Turning from the life to the legend, Dyson maps the warfare of interpretation that erupted after 1965, the competing portraits that idolize, demonize, and finally distort the man. The life and thought of Malcolm X, Dyson writes, traced a curious path to cultural authority after his assassination. His death heightened the confusion already seized by his final conversion, and engendered bitter disagreement among fellow travelers about his evolving direction, conflicts that traded on polemic, diatribe, and intolerance. His legacy was severely fragmented, his contributions shredded in ideological disputes, even as fear ensured his denigration as the symbol of Black hatred. Groups claiming to be his heirs, from the Black Panthers to the Republic of New Africa, competed in a warfare of interpretation over his torn legacy, each appealing to his spirit to authorize their own program. From the very beginning, the question was never settled: whose Malcolm is it, and to whom does he rightfully belong? To cut a path through the quagmire of conflicting views, Dyson identifies at least 4 Malcolms who emerge in the writing on his life. There is Malcolm as hero and saint, the revolutionary defender of Black unity. There is Malcolm as public moralist, the stern prophet of Black self-respect and ethical discipline. There is Malcolm as victim and vehicle of psycho-historical forces, read through the wounds of his childhood and the traumas of race. And there is Malcolm as revolutionary figure, judged by his career trajectory from nationalist to alleged socialist. These categories overlap, Dyson concedes, and many treatments cross the boundaries, but they are useful handles on the deeper struggle over who Malcolm is and to whom he belongs. The portraits, he notes, often reveal more about their authors than about Malcolm. Behind Dyson's 4 Malcolms lies a method. The literature on Malcolm, he argues, has too often missed the mark, losing its way in psychology dissolved from history, or simply substituting defensive praise for critical appraisal, or tarnishing real insight with insolent ideological argument. The honest critic must instead achieve what he calls the thickest description possible of Malcolm's career, one that neither obscures nor reduces the complex nature of his achievements and failures. Malcolm was too formidable a figure, the movements he led too variable and contradictory, the passion and intelligence he summoned too extraordinary to be viewed through any narrow cultural prism. This is the discipline Dyson asks of his readers and of himself, to describe and explain a difficult man and the forces that produced him, without flattening him into either villain or saint. Dyson takes seriously why Black communities build heroes. Such stories combat historical amnesia and resist the way Black leaders are distorted by forces outside Black communities. They reveal that making a hero is never accidental or value neutral. Yet uncritical devotion carries its own danger, one that cuts against Malcolm's own mature skepticism about blindly following leaders. Malcolm learned that lesson in the bitter fallout of his break with Elijah Muhammad, whom he had once passionately adored. He was not perfect, and he knew it. To freeze him into a flawless saint, Dyson argues, is to lose the very thing that made him great, his willingness to question, to be self-critical, and to change his direction, an unfailing sign of integrity and courage. The truest tribute is honest criticism, not worship. To show how memory is manipulated, Dyson points to Martin Luther King. Like Malcolm, King was a complex figure whose thought evolved, yet his radical legacy, his anti-war witness, and war on poverty, is routinely sanded down into a comfortable dream sold in Coca-Cola and McDonald's commercials. King's memory is treated as most useful when it underwrites an unthreatening optimism about American progress, while the brutal opposition he actually faced is quietly forgotten. The same forces, Dyson warns, now press on Malcolm. His radical edge is being rounded off by worldwide commercialization, even as his X is branded on hats and shirts by every age and race. The battle over King's memory is a constant obligation, and it is a direct warning to anyone who would preserve Malcolm's. Dyson follows Malcolm's image into its modern afterlife, the revival of Black nationalism, the masculinity of Black film, Spike Lee's epic, and the embattled lives of young Black men who claim him. Malcolm's improbable second coming, Dyson argues, was driven by the contemporary resurgence of Black nationalism. As the integrationist promise of the civil rights era stalled and a new generation faced persistent poverty, mass incarceration, and a reemergence of open racism, Malcolm's uncompromising voice spoke to their condition more directly than King's dream. He had risen to a cultural stratosphere once occupied exclusively by King, his posters, speeches, and endlessly sampled voice attesting to a popularity that peaked more than a quarter-century after his death. The keepers of his flame, the Black nationalist bookstores and community gatherings that held him up while he was out of vogue, made the revival possible. Malcolm returned, Dyson suggests, because the conditions he diagnosed had never truly gone away. Dyson reads the wave of Black films that followed Malcolm's revival, works like Boys in the Hood and the larger genre of ghetto-centered cinema, as standing in Malcolm's shadow. These films draw on his image of embattled Black masculinity and his grounding in the streets to dramatize the crisis of young Black men. But they often inherit Malcolm's blind spots along with his power. The same masculine framing that cast liberation as a male drama and pushed Black women to the margins reappears in films that center male rage and male redemption, while women remain supporting figures or sources of trouble. Malcolm's authority lends these portraits a borrowed moral weight. Dyson admires their energy and truth-telling, while insisting that an honest use of Malcolm must also reckon with what his masculine vision left out. Spike Lee's 1992 epic, Dyson argues, did more than any book to return Malcolm to the center of American culture, and it embodies the very tensions the rest of his study describes. The film had to make Malcolm legible to a mass audience, and in doing so, it smoothed his contradictions, leaned on the redemptive arc of the autobiography, and turned a difficult, evolving thinker into a heroic, marketable icon, complete with the X branded on a generation of merchandise. Lee's achievement was real. He gave millions their first serious encounter with Malcolm's life. But the very reach that made the film powerful also illustrates Dyson's worry about crossing over to larger markets to increase mass appeal. Spike's Malcolm is one more made Malcolm, a portrait shaped as much by the demands of cinema and commerce as by the historical man. In his final movement, Dyson asks how Malcolm's memory might actually serve the young black men who claim him most fiercely. Many invoke his masculinity, his blackness, and his ghetto grounding as a kind of racial litmus test, a way of proving authenticity and policing who truly belongs. Dyson, who grew up poor and angry in the same Michigan world as Malcolm, understands the impulse, but warns that the game of proving you are blacker than the next person, an art Malcolm himself sometimes encouraged, can have disastrous results, borrowing a European quest for racial purity and a Manichaean split between us and them. Collective memory, he argues, should be used not to narrow identity, but to empower it, summoning Malcolm's discipline and courage to confront a genuine crisis without repeating his exclusions. Dyson lingers on a deep irony at the heart of Malcolm's revival. Our era stages vigorous debates about racial authenticity and selling out, about the cost of crossing over to larger markets, and participants from politicians to rap artists routinely quote Malcolm's scorching rebukes against such moves. Meanwhile, Malcolm's own X is marketed in countless business ventures and stylishly branded on baseball caps and t-shirts by every age, race, and gender. So much, Dyson writes, for the politics of purity. The man who damned the commercialization of black culture has himself become a commodity. This contradiction is not a footnote, but the central condition of Malcolm's afterlife, the symbol of uncompromising resistance circulating as a fashion, his radical threat softened in the very act of being celebrated. Lecturing on Malcolm in the Netherlands, Dyson was challenged by the Black Dutch writer Stefan Sanders, who argued that Malcolm was far more American than he wanted to acknowledge, a product of a culture obsessed with racial purity. Malcolm's lifelong struggle against domination, Sanders suggested, showed the classic signs of the colonial dilemma. The real difficulty is how one frees oneself from the colonizer, while recognizing that the colonizer is within you. The observation was poignant, and Dyson took it seriously, even as he argued back. Malcolm was a complex figure whose thought evolved, Dyson replied, and his moral vision was transformed over a complicated, heroic life. This exchange abroad sharpened Dyson's own purpose, to argue Malcolm's use in a progressive politics that was racially conscious but not racially exclusive, a Malcolm usable far beyond America's borders. Dyson closes by recovering the Malcolm who valued truth over habit and arguing for a use of his legacy that is racially conscious without being racially exclusive. The Malcolm who appeals most to Dyson is the one who valued truth over habit, whose ability to be self-critical and to change direction was an unfailing sign of integrity and courage. Malcolm's moral authority, Dyson argues, did not rest on perfection. It rested on the fact that he refused the racial hustling that so often passes for leadership, and that he remained the servant, not the master, of his people's best hopes. He blessed black rage by releasing it. His tall body became a vessel for the outrage of those punished by poverty and urban terror. Above all, his moral authority consisted in telling the truth about the nation as best he could, damning its hypocrisy in claiming to help the very people it had harmed. That love of black people, selfless and demanding, is the heart of his enduring magnetism. Dyson rejects the idea that we must choose between the angry nationalist and the evolving humanist, between an empowering racial identity and a commitment to truth across every line of color, class, and gender. These two Malcolms, he insists, need not be locked in fatal conflict. Both quests are legitimate, and Malcolm's career and memory are enabling agents for both. The mature Malcolm was open to a wide range of political negotiations of identity and ideology in the service of lasting liberation, a figure who could be celebrated and put to use internationally by despised and degraded people everywhere. Against both those who would romanticize him and those who would reduce him to a metaphor of rage, Dyson argues for a Malcolm whose complexity is precisely his gift to us. Dyson roots the whole book in a classroom. Teaching a Malcolm X seminar at Brown University, he watched his own students reenact the national struggle over Malcolm's meaning, as Black male students drew boundaries around Malcolm that kept out white classmates, Black women, and even Dyson himself, insisting that only the young, Black, angry, and ghetto-grounded could truly understand him. The seminar, he realized, mirrored the disagreements raging across American culture, in the popular press, in scholarly books, in hip-hop and film. That confrontation hardened his resolve to make Malcolm available to the wider audience he deserves, without turning him into a puppet for mainstream purposes, and without freighting him with the early bigotries he grew to discard. The fight over Malcolm, Dyson saw, is the fight over who gets to define Black identity itself. Malcolm X endures, Dyson concludes, because he named what others would not. He spoke aloud the hurts, agonies, and frustrations of Black people chafing under an enforced silence about the costs of white racism, and he did so with a moral magnetism so great that it still draws people who were not yet born when he died. His complexity resists neat categories and rigid conclusions. The movements he led were too variable, the passion and intelligence he summoned too extraordinary to be viewed through any single prism. Making Malcolm asks us to hold the whole man at once, the hustler and the minister, the separatist and the pilgrim, the prophet of rage and the seeker of truth. Each generation, Dyson shows, will make its own Malcolm. The honest task is to make one worthy of the man. We have followed Michael Eric Dyson from a Garveyite household in Omaha through the foster homes and the prison cell, the rise of the nation's fiery spokesman, the break with Elijah Muhammad, the pilgrimage to Mecca, and an assassination 3 months shy of his 40th year. Then we followed Malcolm's image into its long afterlife, the 4 Malcolms of his readers, the masculinity of Black film, Spike Lee's epic, The Marketed X, and the question that will not rest: whose Malcolm is it? Dyson's answer is that no one owns him, and that the truest tribute is not worship, but honest, searching thought. If this study moved you, share it, subscribe, and like, so more of these voices reach the light. Until next time, keep questioning the myth and seeking the man inside it.